You're listening to the Savoir Faire Audio Experience.
Are you ready?
The Savoir Faire Experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Savoir Faire Audio Experience. Thank you guys for following, sharing, listening. We really appreciate you. And another great interview and a very unique one coming to you today. It's a little mix of everything, and it's kind of a touch of my personal life as well. So I'm excited to talk to Fran Pitre is here. Hello, Fran.
Hi there. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing lovely. Thanks so much for finding some time to chit-chat with me. I love this story, honestly, I have to say, because you and I have some things in common. We both have a love for music and are budding songwriters and singers, which is great. And we also both are parents of twins, which is very cool. So,
oh my goodness.
When I saw this come across my desk, I was like, yep, I'm definitely down to talk to Fran because we've got some things in common and we're going to be BFFs after this. And so let's dive right into this.
Wonderful, Robert.
Yeah, I really love it.
Very good. I'm excited.
Now, I know the story about having twins because I've done it myself and I know the craziness of that. But you, ma'am, are at another level than most people ever get to assume when having twins. So we'll talk about this in your book a little bit later, but I wanted to kind of dive into some things that aren't on the list right away. So can we talk a little bit about your professional career and kind of some of the stuff that you're doing professionally for work and stuff?
Absolutely. I would love to do that. Absolutely. Yes. So I wear a few hats. Way back before the kids all came up along, my professional world is graphic design and music. So by day, I was a graphic designer, have been for many years, worked in advertising, worked in corporate, and that was my day job. And at night, I was a rock band lead and backup singer. And so fast forward through 6 children, and I picked up again with all of it. Actually, I never put down the graphic design side. I was able to continue throughout being a stay-at-home mom, being a work-at-home mom as well. So I was able to have that career continue, bring in some residual income, so nothing huge, but enough to keep my identity going and my skills up to speed. And but I had to I couldn't exactly do everything while I had all the children coming along, but I did have to back burner the music for a while. But once the third set hit about 10 years old, I jumped back in. So that's been about 8 years now. And so the professional side of me today is I am still working as a designer. I still have a handful of clients that I do work for. But my main focus is music. I have a band locally in Jacksonville, Florida. We are a Fran Pitre and class act. And we perform original and cover music. We do everything from clubs to corporate events and weddings, and do some touring around the area. I've written music over the years. I jotted down lots of lyrics and melodies that I wrote, and so last year, finished publishing, releasing my third album of original music. So wow. It's been a wonderful journey, and that's what I'm doing today, getting the word out there. We've got lots of music on all the streaming sites, and just enjoying the entire ride.
That's so cool. I think you're forgiving me like the synopsis here because there's so many unique pieces to your world, and we're definitely going to dive into each one. So first, applaud to you for being a graphic design artist. That's another piece of me too that we have in common that I didn't know about. So I love that. There's always a creative aspect to people, and I really kind of dive into some of that stuff as well. So it's very cool to hear about that. I mean, graphic design work was mainly your full-time gig. Is music starting to develop into more of a full-time career? You're still kind of the weekend warrior kind of person.
Actually, no. So the graphic design has been something that goes back to my college days. I mean, that's what I got my degree in. That's what I was working at. when I first got married, we lived in Dallas. We moved into the Northern Virginia, outside of suburban Washington area, and put our careers down and started really growing them then. And as I said earlier, being able to freelance from home has been wonderful as the type of career that you can do that.
Yeah.
That you can, create at home and then send your work either via remote access, whatever the technology of the day was that allowed you to do that. That's what I did. And my children always knew that when mom went into the computer room, that she was working, and they needed to respect a little bit of that time so I could also do what I love doing as well on top of being a mom. And so that is still what I'm doing, but I'm not doing it mainly as much as I'm doing music. Music has become really my focus in terms of my professional focus right now. Okay. I am really performing a lot. Our band is pretty busy as I'd like to be, and I'm hoping to take it to the next level.
That's so cool. Well, let's talk about some music stuff for sure. I mean, I love the creative aspects of creating music. I've been in this music world for a long time as well. My story started when I was a teenager in Nashville, kind of writing, performing, doing some stuff there. Wow. And then just like you, I had to take a break because I also have 6 children and one set of twins. And so I know about stepping back and letting go of that music career and focusing on the things that are really pushing money and not being a starving artist in that regard.
Right.
And I'm just kind of rebirthing now because my kids are older. It sounds like your story is the same. And I'm like, and I'm writing again and putting some stuff out and trying to, connect with the right people and put some stuff in line for myself to kind of get back into music again. So I'm always curious when I talk to people that are kind of similar in the music world, like what is the perspective of like the world to you? Because obviously there's an inspiration for writing music and seeing and hearing different things. So what's the world like from Fran's perspective?
So, music is, and you'll agree, since this is your background, it's also your world as well. Music and getting into the creative aspect of anything, it's not really what we like doing. It's part of what we are. And so you can only basically suppress it or back burner it so long before it's going to come back out. It's going to come out in whatever way it's going to come out, and the timing, for me, when my youngest, as I said earlier, got to a certain age where I felt like maybe at this point I can let go a little bit, and start focusing on more of the things that I can be more independent doing. And that was, hooking up with musicians in the area here and actually having that professional aspect, come back into my life again. Because the last time I had done that, we weren't living in Florida. We were living in Washington, outside of Washington in the Northern Virginia area. So I had no connections, not really, other than just friends that I knew that had some music interests and would go and listen to live music. So to answer your question, to me, it became something, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew I needed to do it. I knew it was time to do it again. So I had to figure out a way to do it. And what I did is just, I spoke with people. They said, maybe you need to talk to so-and-so. And it just became sort of a chain reaction process. And within a few months, I was producing a show in Jacksonville here with a friend of mine that I've known for a few years up in New York who came down. And so we put together a show, and it was sort of my way getting back into music. And it was sort of my debut at that point, and that was in 2018. And from then on, once that momentum started, I didn't stop. I wanted to write more. I connected with a composer here in town, and we, as I said, put together one album and then another album a couple years later. And by 2024, we were finished our third. And I have, the music itself is really all over the place. People want to ask, what kind of music do you do? What is your genre? Well, it's really multi-genre. I love every kind of music. I love jazz. I love blues. I love rock. I love pop rock. I love a little bit of country. I love a little bit of, modern country. So a lot of the music that I wrote, excuse me, they were, the lyrics would fit a certain genre because it just felt right. And we would work on it together and we would play around with it. And that is what happened. So a lot of my music really doesn't fit, any particular genre. That's why I kind of fall under pop as a large umbrella.
Yeah.
And that it kind of works, although I wouldn't call myself, today's, teen pop or anything, but it certainly is a better, umbrella than to say anything else. But most of it is emotional. And most of it, a lot of it is storytelling. A lot of it is direct reflection of experiences that I've been through, that we all go through. So every one of the songs that we've done are near and dear to my heart, and really, a product of who I am, who we are, and I'm very proud of each and every one of them.
Yeah,
so
that's very
I invite
cool.
you to check them out.
Oh, we will. FranPitreSings.com is your website for music. So I want to make a little drop there.
Yes, it is.
Let some people go over there and check some
Thank
stuff
you.
out. Your schedule looks hectic, honestly, even on your music website. But I was gonna ask, like, when you have so many different genres that you truly love, how are you organizing these to put them into an album? I mean, if we listen to an album of yours, are we going to hear all of the genres that you just mentioned, or are you kind of...
You're going to go all over the place.
It's all over the place.
You actually
Okay,
are.
cool.
And that's what the beauty of today is. The beauty of today's technology, though, you can create your own playlist on, say, Spotify and throw all the blues together. You can mix it all up, and you can throw the more rock tunes together if you're in that mood. Or, you can do a little mix up and see how it, if you want to just have it looping in different ways and see how the mood goes after that point. But, I can't, as I said, I can't really fit into one. And I don't ever really plan to. It's just who I am. So, it's fun. And if you listen, but you will hear the underlying vocal applications that I am that make it uniquely me. So that, you'll know that it may be a fast tune or a slow tune or a bluesy tune or a more of an upbeat, but you'll still feel the undercurrent of the common thread of the music that is me.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you're kind of all over the board in that genre, which is really kind of cool. I also write a lot of music for a lot of different genres too, so I don't stay in one box. I think originally I was kind of like country pop when I first got into songwriting back in the day. There was a lot of like really, up and coming artists that were kind of crossing over into that pop category, was kind of being introduced in like the early 2000s. And so that's when I started kind of writing some of that stuff. And it had a lot of like R&B, pop, country, a little bit of bluegrass. There was a lot of little things that were kind of coming together at that point. So I think my writing in that stage was really cool. But now I'm very clearly writing like rock, pop, reggae, country. I'm all over the board. I love music from all different walks of life, which is cool. And I love hearing about your music stuff. It's a big piece for me, but I definitely want to dive in and talk a little bit more about just being a mom. Such an interesting story that you've had 3 sets of twins. I saw some stat that said like 23.2% out of 1,000 pregnancies would be twins or something like that. What was the stat that you probably know this better than I do, but somehow you did this 3 times?
I'd like to say I have a very firm stat, but for what I've read, and it doesn't seem to change, that basically 2 in a million women, or 2 in a million, will have 3 sets of twins. So 1 in 500,000, but it's just easier to say 2 in a million. But what I can't find is how many people have had 3 sets of twins in every twin combination, because that's what we did.
Oh,
we have
okay.
2 girls.
So you have identical, fraternal, and then mixed.
They're all fraternal. Actually, they're all fraternal. So they're all just kids that came in 2s. Now, they all look like Pitre kids, but they're all twins that, they're fraternal. 2 girls first, and then a boy-girl set came second, and then the 2 boys came last. And that was definitely, a little, God's sense of humor there for sure when it came to having the 2 boys last. So that is, now as for the stats of how that comes about, I can't seem to find that. But
have you talked to like your doctor about this stuff? Like, have they given you any kind of like thing that was like, I mean, I always heard this like these little wise tales that like twins skip a generation, right? Like they,
Right.
but like what's this? I mean, this is like kind of an abnormal situation for you. So,
Well, it certainly is. Now, but you have to understand that, yes, we have twins on my mother's side of the family. In fact, there are, I believe, about 8 sets of fraternal twins that I know of on my mother's side of the family in different generations and out there, second cousins, third cousins, that type of thing. But my husband and I did go through elements of infertility. So that was a factor in sets 1 and in sets 2, but not in set 3.
okay.
So that makes the story even more interesting. So,
yeah. Well, you know what? I think you have a strong faith too. And I read a little bit about that too. So I think this is just one of those stories where like, this was the blessing that you were supposed to receive, period. And that's so unique. Mine are fraternal boys. Definitely don't look, it's very interesting to see them when they're younger too, because one of my twins looked like me as an adult and one looked like me as a baby. It's so weird.
and mom wasn't in either of them, right?
I mean, you could see a little bit of her, obviously, but like when I looked at them, I was like, people would put my baby picture next to one of my sons, and it would just be like identical. You couldn't tell. And then the other one didn't look like my baby picture at all. And you could look at a photo of me as an adult and him, and it was like, oh, how the heck did he get the narrow face? Like he didn't have that, like it was just very interesting to see.
Genetics are something, aren't they?
Yeah,
they really
it's very
are.
interesting.
They truly are.
So I know a little bit about
my daughters.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say my daughters. Actually, all of our sets. As crazy as it sounds, I have a brunette and a blonde in each set.
Oh,
so that is just the way it worked out. Every single time there was a blonde and a brunette, and that's just the way it was. There was also a very challenging one and a very less challenging one. So there was always that in each set that came along. So
yeah, I think it's very interesting. I also heard this other wise tale. People say the more children you have, the easier it gets. Have you heard that before?
Oh. I think I don't think that's true, but I mean, I think it's different for everybody.
I don't think that's true either. So I clearly remember kind of the phase of like having twins, and this was teamwork for sure for their mother and I. Like we had to really kind of put in the effort to get them on the same schedule. They have to sleep the same time, eat the same time. And then when you have a single child, it's a little different. I guess there's still a schedule when you have one single kid, but like putting twins on schedule and getting them organized so you can have some kind of a sleep life is very important.
Right.
I'm curious about that. Like, what's the age difference between the 3 sets? And then how did you kind of manage all that stuff with your husband?
So the first set, they were about 4 when my second set were born. So we had 4-year-olds and the newborns. And so by then we didn't, at least they were, they're potty trained, and, they were 2 girls and they were a little bit more independent at that point, but it was still, 4-year-olds are still pretty young, and then newborns. How we managed to get them, on their sleep schedules, et cetera. It's really not a science. Every child is different. Every parent is different. It was sort of a, trial by fire situation, because every child is going to have, certain characteristics that just make them, less apt to want to fit into a schedule. I always had that problem with one of each set. Always, as I said, I had one that was colicky till I swear she was 7 months old before she settled down. And that was challenging. So somehow, though, I have to say that we survived it. And we thrived. Each set presented, the challenges of sleep deprivation, having newborns, and just how to keep everything moving and everything going, and allowing yourself that time to shower and brush your teeth and, and eat and sleep. Sleep was the hardest thing to understand, how very difficult sleep deprivation can be on a human. But, I have to say that if it hadn't been for the super dad, super husband that I have, and who I'll always give enormous credit to, he would have breastfed if he could have, let's put it that way. He did everything. And till this day, he still does. He's just a hands-on dad. He's been a wonderful, wonderful support. More than that, I mean, we've been 50-50, with 100 and 100, the way our partnership works. And we never had family that lived in town with us. We always were on our own, but we had, my mother-in-law came and she stayed for a few weeks. My mom would do the same. The biggest challenges for us were when I was pregnant again and maybe on bed rest, which happened with all of my pregnancies because of my risk of going into preterm labor, which is a whole other story. But that is when I found, accepting help was so very, very crucial. And knowing that, without the help of our family, support of our friends and neighbors, and of course my husband, I would never have gotten through it the way we did. And so I'm very grateful for all of that, and saying that is what got us through it, teamwork, getting through it, taking turns. My husband and I would say, all right, listen, I need 3 hours of sleep. Mm-hmm. So he would say, that's great. Take all the time you need. I've got this. And that's how we did it. We would go into a room and shut the doors and put the earplugs in and, and make sure we could get some sleep. And so that's how it was. Real partnership. It was real teamwork. And, when it's all said and done, we all got through it. And honestly, it was great example for the kids who were growing up to see how a partnership and marriage works when it comes to the hard stuff. Our children watched that last set of twins. By then we had 12-year-olds and 8-year-olds, and they knew what it took to watch mom and dad, juggle the hard stuff, and also see how that it can be doable and there can be humor in it all, and and life goes on, and it's been a roller coaster ride that I just wouldn't trade the world for.
Yeah, that's very cool. How old are the twins now?
So now, oh yes, they're much older now, much older now. Our youngest boys are now 17. Our youngest boys are now 17. So that just goes up from there. So 25 and then 30. So yes, wow. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. And I'll tell you, it happens really fast. It
really does. My twin boys are 17 as well. So.
Wow.
And they're the second to the youngest. I have a 16-year-old. Everyone else is older. So I get it. Like sometimes it just goes by super fast and you're just like, what just happened?
Yes.
How is this even possible? Yes. I completely understand that. But it's so cool to kind of see the life path of all this stuff and just kind of understand a lot of things that you're kind of going through as a mother of 3 sets of twins, on top of being a musical artist and graphic design work that you're still doing. So obviously this inspired some very cool stuff in your world, and you wrote a book. The book is called Twins x3. Talk to me a little bit about the book and what inspired you to actually write the book. Like, what was the perspective of just sitting there thinking about when did the idea hit you that we need to write a book about this?
So the idea hit me sort of in retrospect because I went on bed rest with my first set of twins at around 20 weeks. I started having preterm labor very early. So I quit my job, which was suddenly. I went to work one day and then I left at lunchtime and I never returned. And so you're taking a very, very focused, goal-driven, busy person and telling her she has to lay on the couch all day. Yeah. So it was very difficult. And so I found ways to keep busy. And part of that was journaling. And so I would journal my feelings. I would journal how I spent the day. I would journal when I would have to go into the hospital to stop the labor. I would journal the nurses' names and how they, impacted the situation. I just decided that was a cathartic and therapeutic way to sort of get through this process. I did it throughout that pregnancy, and I kind of just kept doing it. And I would just journal now and then. By the time the second set were on the way, basically the same thing happened. And the second time I was actually expecting triplets for a while, which is another side story. Yes. Which changed around 12 weeks, but up until that point, yes. And then the journaling continued. It just became something that I enjoyed doing. wasn't every day. Maybe every couple of weeks I would just jot down some ideas or jot down some plans or some hopes or some prayers for that matter. And what happened is after my third set were born, I was just kind of sitting and going and looking at the last things that I had written down. And then I went back to this little stack of books that were in a little rubber band, and I unwrapped them and I started going back to the beginning. And I thought, I just may have a book here. I think I may have to go from the very beginning and start to write it down. So I went into my office where I worked in my home office, and I started to write the book, the story. And about a year later, it was finished. And this is while my boys were probably about 7 months old when I started to do this. So it took until they were going on, about a year and a half by the time it was finished. And I had it self-published and I put it out there, and that was 2009. And then in 2019, I updated it and republished and re-released it as a 10-year anniversary edition of Twins Times 3. And last year, I completed and released the audiobook version, read by me in the music studio here in Jacksonville. And that is my latest product, up to date to 2024.
That's so cool. So is it kind of the roller coaster of just all the things that happen with you, taking all those notes and putting that into the book? Or is there
exactly.
Is it a how-to with twins as well? Or
in a way, yes. Oh, definitely. There's a lot of what it is. It's basically written in first person. So it's basically like a journal, like a diary, not a diary in terms of every day and dates, but it is along the course of life, starting in the beginning and going all the way through last year. And it does talk about, I touch upon some of the challenges that I meet, some of the quandaries that we meet, some of the difficulties of decision making, especially when it came to infertility and how to respond to that, how to continue it. A lot of it has to do with my faith and what I would do and what I would not do. So a lot of that is there. So it's, everybody has their life. Everyone has their journey, and everyone has to make decisions based upon their own heart and their own belief system. And so I felt the need to put it down in writing, share it, put it out there, and make it okay to have the feelings that we have the doubts that we have the self-doubts, the doubts in people around us, and wonder what the future is going to be like, but put it down with an underlying element of gratitude and just the thought that I had gone from someone who didn't think she'd have a child to having 6. It's been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. And we are blessed beyond words. And everyone, they say about a parent, to see your grown children and what they've accomplished and who they are is the most rewarding part of parenting. And that's where we're now in our lives, looking back and thinking just how fast it all went, knowing that if I could give any advice, it would be to savor, to just relish what you're going through, the hard parts, the good parts, the funny parts. Always see the humor in it, but always be grateful for the bad and the good, because it's making who you are today, and people are watching and people are learning from what you go through. So you may be inspiring someone, whether you know it or not. So that's what I've learned along the way. So it's given me that purpose.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
Doing that with a book.
Thank you so much for that, Fran. That's like some really solid advice, and I appreciate that. I want to give some shout outs to some of the stuff you have going on online so people can go check you out. So again, FranPitresings.com, which is FranPitresings.com. And then the other one is FranPitre.com direct, which is more about your blog and your life in the book and things like that, the more personal stuff of being a mother of 3 sets of twins, which is just still crazy to me this day. So FranPitre.com is a website for parenting twins. Everything from
a difficult pregnancy, a high risk pregnancy, all the way to sending them off to college and everything in between. So I wrote articles on all of it based on my own experiences. Yes.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I definitely enjoyed our conversation. I really appreciate connecting. It's so cool to kind of talk with someone that's very similar to myself with life choices and professional career and just everything, which is so cool. But thank you so much for finding time to talk with me today and just kind of let us into your world. The other thing I was going to mention too, before I let you go, is the book, obviously available on Amazon, Twin Times 3.
Correct.
So Twin X3 is the title. People can go look for the book there, but it's also on Fran's blog as well. So thank you so much.
Correct. Thank you so much, Robert. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be on this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.